One of the random wacky things that I suggested that they do was no one knew. Everyone knew about mines being dangerous. Everyone knew about mines being deadly, but no one really exactly knew why they were deadly exactly. So one of the random wacky things I suggested that they do is to dig 1,000 foot hole straight down, about bigger, no bigger than a man. I said it didn't have to be that big, but basically 1,000 foot hole straight down about. Um, and I said preferably about 4 foot by 4 foot would probably be best, but pretty much a hole going down about 1,000 feet into the earth. And then I said, and then take sensing, and then do it with ventilation, of course, not just digging a hole into the ground, because everyone knew when you dug down to the ground it was dangerous. That's why most mines had the bottom shaft, and then that shaft went up, usually to allow whatever it was inside of a mountain to vent. So one of my wacky things that I suggested that they do is to dig a hole down with ventilation, with proper ventilation. Going down about 1,000 feet into the ground, or so, or some amount. I said some amount more than 100 feet. And then I suggested that they then take sensing gear to figure out what exactly it was there that was so deadly, and do this with oxygen, of course. Inside of a suit, I suggested, that would not, and then they could tell what the gases were. I suggested even like taking a flame and then taking it down to the different levels, and where it would, because mines were explosive. Everyone knew that when you dug down, sometimes, especially with the little gas lanterns, certain people would explode, unless certain areas would explode and certain areas wouldn't. But they didn't really know why or when or where or how it happened, other than the fact that you needed to have a vent tunnel at the very base of a mountaintop, basically. They knew that, I knew that, everyone knew that. So one of the things I suggested was dig a hole down, or to cap off the bottom vent of a mine shaft, and then to carefully and slowly, put a flame throughout a vertical shaft, basically, to see exactly where, when, or how, or what it was that would cause the explosion. I said preferably to do this, where it just went up to the surface, and then they could just slowly lower the flame down into the thing to see exactly where, or what at what elevation from the bottom that a particular life-threatening gas was, and exactly to see what was there. I said in general, in the end, about 1,000 foot shaft, and then to see what it was. And this would have probably played a key role into the finding and determining of natural gas and other gas forms. Because they would naturally, because I figured, because they needed a bottom vent to mines, there must be something that is forming within because different gases have different weights, right? Just like with water and air. Why doesn't water float through air? Well, besides gravity, and gravity plays a key role in this, but also, obviously, one matter element must be more dense than the other one. Just like hot air must be lighter somehow than cold air. So because I didn't know exactly what it was about, because you can feel the heat coming off of fire. Now, why is that? Well, obviously, heat has to be lighter than what's called. Otherwise, you would feel, the warmth from the side of a fire. Oh, it's so nice. But obviously, heat goes up, but you still feel heat from the side. I mean, it's still different ways of sensing, of knowing, about the way the interacting of molecules and stuff like that. As a child, I realized at one point in time, I was surrounded by air. No matter where I went, run away from the air. I was a small child. I was like, I don't know what's scarier, the fact that air is always around, or if I actually got away from the air, that I would die. So as a child, I remember the moment that I realized I was surrounded by air. I was just a little kid. But yeah, in an inventor's way, the identifying of different things throughout time and space, and basically me as a scientist, and that's why Madame Curie loved me as well, or because of love of science, because I had the love of science, I had the love of truth. I wanted to understand and know my surroundings, just like I wanted to know what animals and what life forms had existed on Earth before me, before us, and that played a part into everything else, as far as what exactly everything is and all that. History, time, space, all that. We are humanity, but and that you might call me the first scientist, I guess. Like Lucifer was the first scientist, and I did determine things like the fire and heat and how hot air obviously is lighter than cold air, and obviously you could capitalize on this if you had enough hot air inside of some sort of fabric cloth thing. And they did tests on this to demonstrate and show that this was in fact a real thing. The first science experiments were basically testing out all my theories. And they did test out a lot of my theories. And my theories were usually right. I was a very, very careful child and very, very careful scientist. Later on, it becomes such a well-known and easy fact, but where did it all start? Well, Lucifer, a child genius, I suppose you can call me. But basically, yeah. I discovered flight and how to stand on air. Hilarious, right?